Hey, Sean.
Yeah, that was really good. Do you feel like a beer?
Wow.
No, man, remember there's that one study that says that one beer post-running isn't too detrimental.
Shona, way to get the science to work for you. I know you and one beer.
Cheers, thank you.
So just remember that science that says the one beer also does say that a beverage of less than 2% alcohol is beneficial. Anything more than 2%, not so much.
Yeah, I hear you, Dev. You know, we're recreational runners. I know a lot of runners run because they run for drinking, right? So as elites, yes, for sure, that's not okay. But yeah, can you just give me a bit of the physiology as to why that study that you read?
Yeah, so I think that's probably the big thing is like just understanding why. I mean, just I love a beer after a run, but you'll know what it feels like having too many beers and that. And the study from a physiological point of view, the time to exhaustion has shown it's way reduced. So you'll feel tired on your next training run a lot quicker. A really big one here is the glycogen and amino acid absorption in the body. So what I mean by that, we know glycogen is a fuel source. It's a substrate that your body requires in order to produce energy. And I mean, if your body's not absorbing and utilizing that properly, there already your performance is just going to take a knock every single time. And that amino acid really being a protein, so that affects the recovery process. So that muscle rebuilding after your training run. So now, I mean, that's twofold. You've got poor performance from alcohol and your recovery, so you can imagine what that's going to do, the knock-on effect to tomorrow's training session as well. I saw a study the other day that actually says just in terms of strength abilities as well. So they did a study on the isometric strength that you can put out is also way reduced just as a result of alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a glass or two of wine the night before a long run, and I've seen a marked difference in heart rates. So pre-run, no alcohol, normal sort of heart rate, run after a night, so not heavy drink, 1 or 2 glasses, and 8 to 12 beats difference in heart rate.
I'm glad you said that, because that's almost exactly like what the science will show, is that 8 to 12 beat difference in heart rate. Remember, your body is having to work so much harder, your heart's having to work so much harder. You're putting toxin, poison, alcohol technically is a poison. And you're putting that into your body. Now, your body's always like being sick. It's always going to try and fight harder to get rid of those toxins. It's sending more blood to the blood vessels, trying to just keep your body in some sort of state of homeostasis. So yes, that's exactly why you'll see your heart rate higher. Again, let's take it to the next day's training session. Your heart rate's higher, you start to panic. What am I doing wrong? Heart rate's higher, so that affects the quality of that training session.
Yeah, I mean, that increased heart rates the next day, I mean, must also have to do with sleep, right?
Massively. So if you had to think about you going out, not even just a couple of beers here, I mean, if you had to have a good night out and you're drinking a lot, several beers, wine, alcohol, whatever it might be, more often than not, you're going to fall asleep quickly. So that's a big thing. It's your onset of sleep is very quick, and you think you passed out and you're having a really good night. I can assure you the quality of sleep, and you're going to be restless. So throughout the night, as that alcohol is starting to work its way out of your system, you're just so restless throughout the night. So that is affecting the quantity and the quality of sleep. And that's just going to have these massive detriment to how you're recovering as well. So it's all this vicious cycle that's constantly going on.
Yeah, constantly coming back to the quality of your performance the next day and that recovery. I think those are the 2 main points that are getting knocked.
For sure.
All right, so yeah, I mean, we're recreational runners, and we're not saying don't drink at all. How do we get the balance right here?
We're human. We're recreational, like you say. We're going to want to have a drink. You can control it though, as to getting your timing of things right. If you are training for a big event, you might have a really big goal event coming up that you're working really hard to, and you're trying to get the quality of your training right. I think just try and plan around things like that. So if you're in a heavy training block and you know you've got lots of miles to do for a couple of weeks on end, just cut back. I'm not saying don't socialize, but maybe have 1 or 2 beers in the evening or after a run or something with someone rather than 6 or 7. Yeah. So it really comes down to just controlling that, periodizing your drinking if you'd like to go that route. But when you have a recovery week or some time off, keeping in mind obviously it affects recovery, but if you've got less training load, feel free to socialize a little bit more around having a few drinks. But I think just try and prioritize. You've got a goal, and if you're working towards that goal, why sacrifice it with poor night's sleep and poor recovery from drinking?
Dev, that's excellent advice. And balancing these things are important. So by balancing, does that mean having a beer in each hand?
I noticed you put both hands up. No, that's not what I mean by that.
Okay, but
Life balance.
yeah. But okay, and then as we get to race day, I mean, obviously we want to celebrate PBs and wins. I mean, I read a study about post race or post race drinking, and they did a study, a control group of people who were drinking, and another group of people having water and the alcohol. And obviously, the people who had water and alcohol didn't have as detrimental effects on recovery. What are your views on that post race?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good one. I mean, I've seen another study also. If you think about, we drive home the points: nutrition, recovery, nutrition. Whether it's your chocolate milk or more protein, more carbohydrates, whatever it might be post-race for recovery purposes. The study I read actually shows you can put all of that in place and be perfect on your timing and your quantities. If you are going to then go and have 6 or 7 beers afterwards, there's no point in having done any of that. It negates everything that you've done well. So all your good recovery strategies you're throwing out the window by having too many beers afterwards. In saying that, again, coming back to, you talk about PBs, I mean, we are recreational runners. We do want to celebrate good results. If it's your goal event and you're training for a massive event and you know you're going to have some time off afterwards, you don't have another event coming up, you're going to go into a bit of an off season. I'm not the fun police by any means. I'm going to have a couple of beers and have a good celebration. So again, I think that comes around to planning around different events. If you know that you need to get back on the recovery because a week later you might have something else coming up, then try and rein it in a little bit. But yeah, I think just keep in mind your recovery has to take priority, especially thinking about what might be coming next. But also, I'm not going to stop anyone from having a good time and celebrating those little wins.
Yep, definitely. Yep. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Alcohol is only one factor that is going to impact your recovery. Watch this video to see other strategies on how to maximize your recovery post running and races.